Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome back. So today we'll start with the session 4, and the agenda for session 4 is this is what we have planned. In the last session, we have seen that we have created multiple flows in a single configuration file. Okay, and today we will try to do that in a multiple flows in a multiple configuration file, and we will see how to use a flow reference and how is the debugging view. As in the previous session I mentioned, we had a development view and the debugging view. We haven't seen the debugging view yet, so we will see today debugging view and how to use the debugger. Okay, and the main the flow that we have created, what is the source, what is the processor, and how does the mule event process through the flows. So these are the now all these words terms may look new, but by end of this session you will be able to understand what are we trying to actually discuss with. Okay, so yeah, I'm sharing my studio here. I hope studio is visible, no? Okay.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
Almost.
yeah, okay, thanks. So yeah, in the last session, what did we do? We created two flows here. Okay. So one was doing the student DB API update flow and delete flow. And what did we do in the update flow? As soon as the request is sent to the listener of a common configuration with the update as an endpoint. So this web services will, what it will do, it web service will throw you a message in the console, the details update request received, and as a reply it was actually sending you a response as student db update request is completed. Similarly, what did we do for delete? Similarly, as just a change of message, it will say details delete request and the response is db delete request is completed. But the change that we had is we have used it port and all same, but our endpoint resource type is our resource is delete here. Okay, and also the method that we used is delete here. Okay. So now we are seeing that both of the configurations, actually both of the flows are in a single configuration file. Okay. Now what we will do, we'll try to split that in a two different configuration file. Okay. So first thing is I will try to create a new XML here. Sorry, I will create a new configuration file. I will write it as a student. Okay. DB API. Okay. Update IMPL. I will keep it IMPL as an implementation. So my plan is now I will try to implement this DB student update flow in this XML. Okay, and delete in one more XML. And this the first root XML, this DB API root XML. From there, the flow should show flow through the flows. So okay, let me create this. Okay. So here, if you see, I have created, this is a very blank canvas and you don't have any flows right now. Then still in the configuration level, you will get some default lines of tags. Okay, other than that, we haven't added anything yet here. Okay. Now I don't want to actually read the same block here, create a same flow, add all the things. So what I will do, I will copy this part and paste it over here. How will I do that? I will do a right click on this. I'll say go to XML. When I say go to XML, you can see here the tag starts with the flow name equals to student DB API update. Okay. So this has a listener, logger, and my response message and what message I have done. So all this information is available here. So I will cut it from here. Okay. I will cut the, I have to move this from here to DB update, right? So what I will do, I will actually cut it from here. Okay. And I will paste it here. Where is the end tie here? Here is the end tie. I will send it to the next line. I have to keep it within the mule. Okay. Oh, there was a message which I could have shown. Okay, no problem. I will show it again. Okay. Okay. What does it say? It says the error message, which you can see it here. Okay, let's see. What does it say? Okay. So if I click on message here, it might be a unique DB API update flow, but because it is still not saved here, no? As soon as now it is cut here, but it is not saved. So it is here on the DB update API, it is saying duplicate name. Name should be unique. So once I save it here, it will be moved out and here the error should go. Once we refresh, it will go actually. Okay. Okay, let it be. It will go over time. Okay. So now, as you saw here, what did we do? We have cut the update XML update flow from here and pasted it with an implementation of DB API update. Similarly, now what we will do, we will do the same for our delete flow as well. Okay. So again, same thing, student, okay, DB API delete, okay, IM implementation. Okay. So we will do this in a different way now. What here we will do only, we will keep only implementation here, and here from here when the flow is called, this should call actually this implementation. Okay. So for that, what we can do, we will create a flow here. Okay. And I will take the update logger and the response payload from here, and I will paste it here. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't come to XML. If it doesn't come, then we'll pull it from here. So this is starting from flow to flow. Now I want to only cut the log and the transform message. So from here to here only I'm selecting it. I will cut it. Okay. Once I come here, I will paste it under process. This is the flow name. Okay. So before doing this, what we'll do, we'll create. Okay, sorry, it was stuck. Okay, delete it. We'll create a flow here. Okay, I think I deleted from there. No problem. I will create a new one here. We'll add a transform message. Update. Okay. Sometimes you will face this. It will not be with your speed. It takes some time to processing, so we have to wait. Okay. So we will come here and paste it here. I'm just reusing what was there in the update because I deleted the delete one. And here update delete request and the logger is delete. Okay. So here if you see, I have only implementation here, correct? I haven't actually brought everything over here, only implementation. That is nothing but logger and the response. So once this listener is called, how it should know that it has to come here? What we will do, we will add a reference from here. You can see here flow reference. So this flow reference will pull and keep it over here. From here, we will give a reference to this flow. Okay, that is my nothing but delete implementation. So student DB API delete flow, this flow reference. Here I will paste the flow name and let us wait until it actually refreshes. It will take few moments. Yeah, you can see the error has gone now. Okay. So what is the benefit that you have now? Once you do a right click from here and click to go to reference flow, it will come to this implementation. This is how the actual project implementation happens. Okay. So the actually, once we actually start taking from the design center, you will understand it better. But for time being, we can understand that the flows that we are getting created in the main XML here we don't actually implement the actual business logic. The business logics are implemented in their own implemented XMLs. So from here, what do? We just do a call reference and call this implementation. Okay, so I wanted to show that how we can actually copy and cut paste the complete flow into from one file to another file. So did I do this? So we will move back this to again the main implementation flow here. Okay, and we will keep only implementation coming from here to here. So you can see I just this is one more method. I just selected this. I did Control C and copied the flow, and I came here and I pasted it here. Okay. So last time, how did I show? I showed it from going in the backend XML, cutting that, and from there pasting. But once we copy and paste here, it will create a copy of it everywhere. So this rename and all will be required. But in case of how we did last time of changing directly from the XML, copying the XML part, the same part will come. Only the API IDs will change. Okay, so now as we have an implementation here, we don't need a listener here. Okay, this is just a implementation. Okay, so here the name should be unique because it we will keep it as a implement flow. Okay, and this also just change, maintaining the same standards. We'll save everything here. I'm saving this also. Now now what we are seeing, we have two flows here, similar to earlier. One is API delete, one is the API update. But here the flow reference is going to the implementation of delete. Here flow reference will come to implementation of this update. I will copy the flow name, will come here, will paste it here. Okay. For our understanding, better understanding, we can do is we can keep the name also here. So that we know where it is going. Student DB API update. This also we can do similar way. Keep it in the flow reference name so that we know. Okay. So I hope till here we are clear. So just to conclude on what we did, earlier we had two flows here. One is an update flow and one more is a delete flow. And the complete implementation of that also we did it in the root YAML, root file XML only, the main file. So, but in actually project, what does it happen? We don't implement everything in our main file. Okay, this main file is only to give it will actually the router once we actually see the from the design sample how we take the project and all, we will understand that API create router, there is one concept is there that we will see it in the future flow. But for time being, we can understand the implementation happens in independent configuration XMLs. All the business logics, everything can be written over here, and from the main file we will call those implementations using the flow reference. Hope this point is clear. Or any questions on this on the part we discussed now? Maybe while doing hands-on, we will get more questions. We can sort at that time. But at the explanation level, if we have any questions, you can ask me. Okay, I hope no questions. So 2 points we did it as we did in the project. One is we created a global config and we gave a common configuration. We reused it. First point. Second point, we have done the implementation in their own XMLs, okay, configuration XMLs, and we have called it through the flow references. This is the second point. Okay. So as per the agenda, we had multiple flows in multiple configuration files. This you understood. This we have already discussed. And the flow reference also we discussed. Next is debugging view and debugger. Before that, I actually want to add few loggers here so that we can use the debugger and understand how does it flow. Okay. So what do we do in a project before we actually just when we start an implementation to understand how the flow is going? We add a logger just before the calling a implementation flow, and we say that what is this? This is the API delete implement flow. I will just say API delete flow logger, and I will copy this message. I'm going to write it API delete flow start. Okay, same thing I will keep it here, and I will change this as an end. Rather than API, we'll keep it as student API. It makes more sense. Student API. So with these two loggers, what did we do? We added a logger in the starting of the flow and a logger by end of the flow. Okay. So once I started, when the flow starts, my expectation is as soon as the listener it receives the request, it will come here. It should print in the message that student flow API flow started. Once it prints that, then it will go to this implementation, do the business logic, whatever logic it has been applied, it will completely do its task, and again it should come back. Once it come back, before ending, it will print that student API delete flow end. So once this prints that, that means the flow has been ended. So what is the use of this is, see, once you run the API and the request, you will understand actually the time taken between the start of the flow to the end of the flow. Okay, this is one more. And also you can see the level here. If you want to print something very error or all those things, you can define it here. If you want to print a debug level, or if you want to print a trace level logs, so all those can be kept here. Other than that, you can just keep it as a info for the just for the information wherever we are giving. Okay, I hope we understood why we added logger here, start and end. So along with these things, I am actually parallelly explaining how we do it in a project, because you guys have not worked on any project right now. So it will give you a brief idea of how the things goes. Okay. So now let me go to implementation. What did I write here? This also is very important. I just say student API delete flow start. Okay. But when I'm going to this implementation here, okay, so here this is actually kind of an I will put it as a debugger now. This is a debug statement. Okay, so before, and I will add the logger again, same here, similar to there, but I will, what I would say here, I will say, let me copy and paste from here. I will say student API delete flow implementation start. Delete flow start. Okay. Student delete implementation start logger. Okay. And by end of this, I will put a closed logger. I will keep it as end. And I'm keeping this also as a info only. I'm keeping this also as info only, because this is an information. This is just an information that the flow is starting, the flow is ending. But in case if we have to print something important, which will be important for you to debug, so such message I keep it under the debug section. So adding this is also an important. Okay, in actual, when we actually start tracing the logs, no, some places where we are printing an error, we keep it as error. So you need not to search for all the logs. We can go and search for this particular message, along with that the level that it is there. Okay, so now we saw that if I will take just the same example only, I will not implement the same thing for second one. This we can do as a practice. For DB delete flow, we will do it. So in the delete flow, I have earlier when we started the session, what I had a listener and a logger that says that request is received and a response message. What have we done it now? We moved this implementation part to the API delete implementation flow. Along with that, we added two loggers for before calling the call references. And I say my student API delete flow start here and my student API delete flow end here. And when we go to implementation, the implementation also says that student API delete implementation flow start, and similarly by end it says the implementation flow end, and the logger which we had, the debug logger, that is being put here, that student details request received. Okay, in case we are sending some request in the payload, that also we can use it using this effects that we will see it in the future session. Right now we are hard coding the messages. We can read it from our payload or input request and use that. Okay, so this is a logger. What additional thing we do usually in the project is, along with this, we write what is the kind of log is that. I would say debug. Okay, so because when you have so many log messages, you don't know actually which one to see. You can't click on each on everyone and then keep seeing, right? So we keep this information on header only, which says, okay, this is the info, this is the debug logger. So you know you will directly go to the debug logger, so select for that message and search in the your console. Okay. Okay. So similarly, let me do it for here also. That this is an info logger. This is also an info logger. Okay, I will not implement same thing for update, that we can do it post this session. Okay. Okay, now if I see here, we did multiple flows in multiple configuration. We did flow references. Okay, and this part source, processor, and mule event. Okay, source is, you can this I explained in the first session. Something that is on this part of a flow is called source. Okay, there can be a flow without a source, but there cannot be any flow without the implementation or the processor. Okay, this is important. There can be a flow without the source, but there cannot be any flow without the processor. Example, I can show it to you right away. You can see the flows have been created without the source here. You have the processors, but okay, if I create a flow here without a processor, it will throw an error. Okay, what I will do, I will delete this. I will just add a source here, listener. Sorry, just an example. Okay, but if I now try to actually save this and debug, no, it will start throwing an error, which you can try it by yourself. Okay, right now I will not do this. We will concentrate on this, and later if we have time, we can try that. Okay, so this is one important part. And the mule event is nothing but the input payload or the message, whatever this web service request. The input request that we receive to this flow is nothing but it is called as a mule event, which actually has a mule message, which is consistent of attributes, payload, and variables. The mule message is input request that we receive to this flow, which contains actually attributes, payload, and variables. Attributes is nothing but, which I explained to you in the last time, whatever you are sending in the header or parameter, okay, this query parameter or UI parameter, all this parameter part is nothing but that comes under the attributes. Request header, basically request header, which if you just see the notes before, we have discussed this, what is the request header and the request body. Okay, so this request header is nothing but is our attributes, and payload is nothing but the whatever that comes under here and in the request body. The request body, whatever comes in the request body, that is our payload. So if you want to access the attributes or payload, we will discuss this how to see that, but the request header and request body can be accessed using the attributes and payload. We'll show it how to see that. And variables is over the flows. Over the flow, you can create some variables that we'll see it, and how to access the variable also we can see it. Okay. Okay. Next is okay. We will try to debug this and see the debugger view. I have only 10 minutes left out. Okay. So run debug as Mule application. See, this is the view I was talking about. This is called the debugger view. Okay. So in the debugger view, you can see the console has come here. This is API kit console. This is another part of discussion. Right now, we will not discuss here. Okay. And it says deployed. If there were any problems that would have come here, okay, the console says the application is deployed. And here is the flow that we have created. And here is the debugger. Okay. This debugger comes with some buttons here. And these buttons and debugger, we will see it now. And here is a data wave expressions also. This where we actually can understand what are the mule message and the payload we discussed, that can be evaluated here and see it. Okay. So now for the delete, we will send a request and try to actually start the debugging. I will try to put a debugger point here, add a breakpoint. Where is this? This is my actually main file, student DB API. After the listener on the first logger only, I have kept the debugging point, so that my flow starts from here till the end. Okay. So what was expected in there? So this is the end point, student delete, and I don't expect any body, no parameter, no headers, anything. It is a simple request, and I will send the request here. Once I send the request here, I am expecting it. Yeah, it came. Okay. If you can see here, the request has come from the listener, and it has now stopped here because of the debugging. Okay. So what does this debugger says? If you see here, it says what is the component that it has. It has stopped at API delete flow logger, flow start logger. Okay. And what are the attributes it have? Basically, this is something that has come by default. Okay. There are few default things that comes, that hidden headers and all. Once we give an actual headers, we can actually read it out. In the next example, we'll try to do that. Right now, we haven't given any headers, but you can see that under the attributes, it has come, the request headers, which we were discussing earlier. You can see the method, delete method. Right now, no query parameter, no query string. So the path, request URI path and relative path and all present over here. Okay. And yeah, that is what we can see right now here. That important thing is the header. Under the attributes, we can see the header and the query parameters, query string, and the method. And this is our attributes. And second one is our payload. Payload also, we haven't sent anything. There is nothing in the payload, so it is blank right now. So in the next example, when we try to send something in the payload, we will try to access it, how to see that. Okay. To go to the next step, we will use this. This is nothing but next processor. Okay. Or we can directly use it from keyboard, that is F6. Once I click on this, you can see that the flow reference in the debugger changed. Okay. Now from the API logger, it came to student DB API delete implementation flow reference. And also this once it has moved from this to this, it is supposed to print the log in the console. You can see that it has print the logs here. Student API delete flow start. Okay. This is what I was trying to say. So you know that the flow has started now. Okay, because it has printed out here. Now let's try to move it to the next step. So now we are in the, you also please concentrate on the XML that I am present right now. It is student DB API, which for our for our discussion, we'll call it as a main XML. Okay, where we have not done the implementation, we are just calling the flow. So from here, I am actually going to again next processor. You can see that this has been come to DB API delete implementation now. Okay, so from here, because of the flow reference, it came here and it has gone to logger. So you can see that here student delete implementation start flow start logger info. So this information is present. So as and when we go to the next processor, the same gets highlighted here in the Mule debugger, and the value of the payload and attributes also keeps on changing, basically the Mule event, depending upon what has been sent. But for our example, as this is the very simple basic most, only we are seeing that how the data is being moved from one flow to another flow. Okay, I will go to the next processor, and what would be my expectation? My expectation is this logger should print a message here now. Okay, yeah, it printed an info message if you see. Okay, now I will see what it says: student API delete implementation flow start. Okay, this is what we were expecting. So that the I know now the implementation has started. Okay, and what is my next logger now? My next logger is debug. So this debugger is nothing but this debug log is something I am going to actually see it in the messages for my debugging. That's why I have added it as a debugger. Let me see what does it print. Okay. Okay, it moved to next one. Debug log is not actually, it is not printing. Okay, let me see. Okay, we'll see this later. And then the response payload, whatever the response payload it has done. Okay, this message will be done. Now it has set the payload. You can see that we are setting in the response payload as whatever. So that in the debugger, you can see in the payload that the message has been set. Okay, whatever we have set in the payload, in the response payload is nothing but the output that I'm going to send. We have sent it as a response because it is the response we want to send it. Okay, or else it's just a payload actually. So whatever we have set in the payload, you can see that in the debugger that has been updated now. Okay, now it has been on the last actually logger. We will see what will happen once you print this. Okay. Okay, so then it is not printing debug loggers. Okay, it is printing only info. Okay, so it says the student API delete implementation flow end. Okay, and you can see that it again came back from implementation back to the main XML. Okay, and I will see what I can do is if I want to go to the end of the flow, not by clicking next, I can directly click F8. Okay, when I click this F8, it will resume the flow. Once I click this, you can see that the flow has been completed. Okay, and here the last one is student API delete flow end. So what did we understand from this flow is we started the flow. It started with the logger where flow started. Then that flow is called with one more flow where it has been implementation. So after this business logic, everything implementation is done. After that, it says end. From the end, it comes back to the same flow, and it says here the flow has been end. Okay. So this is the complete life cycle of how the flow starts once you trigger a request till the response. Now we should, one important thing what we should check is what is the response that we have got now. So response is 200 okay, and the message is whatever the response payload that we have set, that will come as message student DB delete request is completed. Okay, was it too much information today, or able to grasp at least some part of it? We'll try to do it hands-on in next after this session is done, so we all will get a more better idea. But yeah, introducing yourself to this actually debugger view was also important. And what happens in actual project is actually we don't implement everything here. We have an implementation XMLs. We implement there, and this loggers, all this play very important role actually in the global configuration. How do we add it? This no one says this, but this is where actually we stand different from others. The standards of coding, how the more the properly we have to add the logger so that it helps anyone to debug and understand where exactly is the error. Okay, so yeah, we discussed all the points that we were planning to. Next session, I will try to actually little bit go to the next. This is very simple request and header. I will go with a little complex one and start discussing on that. Okay, and thank you for joining. I will share the invite again. We will connect there and discuss if any clarifications on this. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.